Hi there, this is Jeanette. Today I have a set of 4 cards that I created. The stamp set that I used is called Somebunny. It's from My Favorite Things. And then I used different background stamps and some dies from other companies to create these cards. Although they have very different color palettes, they all still read as a set. This one here has a very dark sort of pink magenta background, and the background stamp on the mat is a very beautiful floral, and this pink one has the same floral background. All I did is change the color palette that I was using. In these next 2 cards you can see that the background is a script, so it still has the same way of treating the card, but because I've changed the background it does look a little bit different. I did change up the sentiment on each card. They all have Somebunny, and then I changed the sentiment using the sentiments that are included in the stamp set. So the first thing I did is I took this tag, this is from Fawn, and I cut out the tag using some Bristol watercolor paper because I'm going to be watercoloring everything using Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers. And by the way, I'm going to list everything I used at the end of this video, so you'll know where to get anything that I used. So now I'm just taking my little anti-static bag and a post-it paper. This is the type of post-it paper that has the adhesive all over the back, and I'm stamping the tag and I'm stamping the post-it because I'm going to be creating some masks. So I'm doing this all in one step, and I'm using archival black ink because this is a really good ink for watercoloring, and because I'm going to actually be clear embossing over top this, I need this ink because it dries slowly. So you can see I'm stamping each tag with a different bunny, and I'm making sure to create a mask at the same time. So I'm going to go ahead and add clear embossing powder to the masks. I do this because I want to make sure that none of that ink smears when I'm blending over top of it. And I'm going to do each of the tags, making sure to tap off any excess powder. And then I'll just take my heat emboss gun or heat emboss tool and just melt all that embossing powder, making sure that the entire area is melted and covered. And I'll do the little masks as well at the same time. So I did want to stamp the little wheelbarrow that comes in the set. I wanted to stamp it with this little bunny so it looks like she's sort of pushing the wheelbarrow. So in order to do that, I had to first stamp and emboss the bunny on the tag. Now I'm going to cut out the mask so that I can put that over top and then stamp the wheelbarrow on. So this paper is quite thin, so cutting out the mask is actually not as time consuming as you may think. You just have to be careful to really cut it out very well close to the edges. So I'm going to put the tag in my MISTI. I'm going to run that anti-static bag over it again, place my mask over top, and then I'm going to position the wheelbarrow exactly where I want it to be. Then I'm just going to swing that window or arm down, pick up the stamp, ink it up, and stamp it onto my tag, and I'm going to make sure to create a mask at the same time. So I'll just re-ink that and stamp it on my post-it, and I will sprinkle the clear embossing powder on the tag and onto the mask. I found my little tweezers. Those are much easier to use when you're heat embossing so you don't burn like the tip of your thumb. So that's all done now. I'm going to start stamping the sentiments. So I was thinking about how to do it sort of in the quickest way possible, and that was to basically line up the tag along the edge, place the Somebunny onto the tag, swing the arm down, pick it up, and then I can stamp it. And then I'm going to remove the tag and replace the next tag in the exact same place. So I did end up putting the clear embossing powder over top of it right away, and then I place the second tag in the same place so that the stamp is going to stamp exactly where I need it to be, and that's just a little bit quicker because you don't have to keep repositioning the stamp. Once that was all done, I did change up the second part of the sentiment. There's a lot of little phrases in the stamp set, so I changed up the one I used on each tag. So there's thinking of you and love you. There's all these different ones. So those I did have to do one by one. Basically choose the sentiment and line it up on the tag and stamp it. So that was a little bit longer to do, but I think it's worth it to create, you know, unique and personalized little tags. So I did sprinkle the embossing powder in between each one because it did take a little bit more time than when I was stamping all the bunnies at the same time, and I didn't want anything to dry and then the embossing powder wouldn't stick to it. So we're almost done. I think using the MISTI is what makes this project sort of feasible. I think it would take an awful long time if you didn't have it. So now I'm just finishing off cutting out all my little masks. Once they're all on, I'm going to take this bone folder and I'm going to sort of just press it over top, sort of burnish it to make sure it's really stuck down well. And now I'm using my clarity brush. This is, I guess, the second largest or the second largest one. And I'm using some aqua blue ink. I'm just sponging that on, concentrating around the bunny. And you can see when you lift the little bunny off, you have this beautiful blue background. So I'm going to do that for each of the little tags. The clarity brushes are really nice because you get a very, very soft blend. You don't get any stippling marks or any sponge marks. So I've been really enjoying using these ones lately, especially when I want like a very diffuse background. Once it was all done, I started coloring up the little images. So because there was a lot of coloring, I didn't share the whole coloration process. And what I did is, you'll see at the end of the coloring, I'm going to have a picture with all the tags, and I've listed all the Zig clean color markers that I used for each tag. So I won't be listing them on the screen right now, but I will be sharing sort of how I did this. I'm using a light color and a dark color. I put the light color down, then the dark color, then I blend the dark color, and then I use some water on a paintbrush to complete the blend. I like to work in small areas, so that's why I do the sort of face and ears first. Once that's completed, I can work on the rest of the body, just using the exact same technique. You can see that I have a paper towel off on the side, and that's what I use to wipe off any excess water or any excess color that's on my brush. That way I can make sure that I have some areas that are very, very lightly colored, that I don't get too much ink over my coloration. So now I'm going to work on the dress. This is the one that was the pink bunny, so I'm laying down actually the darker color and then blending that with a lighter color. I'm not covering the whole area. And then I'll take a paintbrush that's dampened with some water, and then I will just blend out the rest of the color, sort of making sure that it fades to a very light color at the bottom. The paper that I'm using is Strathmore Bristol watercolor paper, and if you've been watching any of my videos lately, you know that I sort of found this or discovered this and really fell in love with it because it works so beautifully with these Zig markers. It's a real game changer, and I feel like it really helps the coloration process. I'm going to be adding a little bit of pink to the ears and the cheeks, and I like to lay the ink down on a mounting block and then pick it up with my paintbrush. It gives me a better control, and I'm able to make sure it's nice and soft and diffuse. I don't want to make like clown cheeks on any of these bunnies. I'm going to move on to this next bunny. This one is colored brown, but I'm going to be sharing that, how I did that a little bit later on in the video. So right now I'm just showing you the coloration again, and you can see that I'm respecting where the light source is coming from. So if you look on the left side, as you're looking at it, the left side of the tag it's darker there than on the right side because my light source is sort of coming in from that right hand side. So the face is lighter, and I want to make sure that the dress is lighter there as well. I'm going to color in the flowers in the wheelbarrow, and it's fun to do this with the Zig brush markers because they come to such a fine point. It's very, very easy to work in tiny little areas like this. And because I did the clear embossing, that actually helps as well. It forms a tiny bit of a ridge on the lines so that it's harder to go outside the lines because of that little raised edge. So that's another reason why I really like to clear emboss these. I think that's a little bit of out of frame, but I'm just adding green to the leaves. And then I will color up the wheelbarrow. Again, this is just really quick coloration. It doesn't take a whole lot of time, just using 2 colors of markers. And then just using a little bit of water on a paintbrush to blend it all out. And if ever it gets too dark, you can just run your paintbrush over it and wipe off the excess on a paper towel, and that will remove some of the color and lighten up an area. Putting some yellow in the center of the flowers and making sure that I color up the bunny tail. I'm going to work on this bunny now, and I'll be sharing how I did that sort of brown color for the bunny. Again, using 2 shades of brown. I laid down my light color first, then went over it with the dark color in the areas I wanted some shading, and then I'm blending that out using the lighter brown marker again. Again, I'm leaving a lot of the area white so that I can just blend that out with my paintbrush so that I get a really nice light sort of center to the bunny. I'm going to blend out the ears in the same way. And once I'm happy with that, making sure there's no water lines, I can move on to the rest of the body. So I'm not going to show you the rest of the coloration, but I am listing all the markers I used for each tag, and the coloration technique is the same for each. So I hope that helps. I hope you like it. Let me know in the comments if you like that or not. Now we're going to move on to making the actual tags that these bunnies are sitting on. I have this die, it's like an embossing die, I guess. It doesn't cut all the way. It's a quilted die, I think it's called. Anyways, I'll list all the names and where they come from below this video. So I added that to the paper for some nice texture. It gives sort of it looks almost like it's quilted. And then I'm using this journaling tag from Fawn to cut out this rectangle shape. So once I had all 4 done, I cut out some cardstock to measure 4 by 5 1/4. Now I'm inking up the background stamp with some Versamark, and I'm placing a piece of paper over top so that I can press it down really well so that the cardstock picks up that ink. So I'm going to be doing the dark pink card and the lighter pink card using this floral background stamp. Being really careful not to touch the edges of it so that I don't smear the Versamark. Now I'm putting some white embossing powder over top, making sure everything is really nicely covered, and then tapping off the excess. And then I can do the second one here in the same way. And then I heat set it with my embossing tool, and you can see how this is all coming together. For the blue and green, I used a different background stamp. This is a typewriter type text. And now I'm just putting the card together. After adhering all those components, I did put the button over top and use my paper piercer to pierce some holes, and then I used a hole punch to make the holes a little bit bigger so that it was easy to thread this twine through. Just going to adjust that bow a little bit and then trim off the edges. And then I do put a little dot of glossy accents on the knot so that it dries clear, but the knot won't come apart. So again, I'm putting all the components down, lining the button up, poking the holes, and then punching the holes. So this is what I did for all 4 cards. And again, it goes quickly when you're doing the same thing over and over again. It goes really quickly. So that is it. That is how I created these cards for this little set. I hope you enjoyed this video. A full list of the supplies will be found below this video, or you can check my blog. Thanks for watching.